Welcome back to Garage Matters. Today we'll be doing an oil change on a 2010 Nissan Frontier. The oil that I've selected is a 5W30. We're going to stay with the manufacturer's recommended oil weight. This vehicle takes roughly around 5.4 quarts. I've got 5 quart, 1 quart, and a brand new oil filter, all for around $52 from my local auto parts store. For the money that I spent, I know that this vehicle is going to get a full synthetic blend, quality oil, and a quality oil filter that I can see going inside this engine. Not only do I know that the product that's being used in this engine is a quality product, but also the work. The work is quality. There's been many times where I've taken a vehicle to a 10-minute oil change in my younger days, and they've often came back to say that, hey, the drain bolt is stripped, the drain bolt is cross-threaded, we can't get it out, and then they have to stick a larger size bolt in there to try to seal it up, or worst case scenario, the drain pan has to be replaced. So let's get started. This vehicle, for me, is tall enough to where I don't need a jacket, so I'm not going to jack it. I'm just going to reach my arm underneath this vehicle, access the drain bolt right here, 14 millimeter. I'm just going to loosen it, start letting the oil flow. Once the oil is slowly dripping out, no more coming out, I'm going to reinstall the bolt by hand. So the reason why we're doing it by hand is to make sure it's threaded in properly and not cross-threaded. Once it's cross-threaded, you might not be able to hold the torque. You can start backing out, start getting loose. You're going to have oil dripping everywhere. Always do it by hand, and then use a wrench. Alright, so she's snug. Once she's snug, what we're going to do is bring in the torque wrench. I'm going to go 30 foot-pounds. Some say between 20 and 29, but you can go 25, but for me, I'm going to go 30. That's it. That's all it takes. Torque to 30 foot-pounds. Don't go any tighter. Now we need to change the oil filter. This little flap, it's got 2 bolts right here. Not really needed to come off, but it is supposed to come off. This little flap comes off, so when you take the oil filter, the oil is gonna drain out of the oil filter, whatever's left in there. It's gonna come out here, so you can leave it on, take it off, but I'm gonna take it off so it's less messy. So under here, it's 2 8mm bolts. Go ahead and take this off. Okay. So instead of completely taking it off, you can just, this one's already kind of loose, but we'll just let it hang like this and move this out of the way. So when we remove the oil filter, it can drain down here. We're going to put this drip pan back under here. So once we take this oil filter off, it's going to start draining down here. Whatever's left in there. It's time to take this oil filter off. I'm just going to stick my hand through this other side. slowly twist it. Sometimes you get lucky, you can twist it off by hand. If you can't twist it off by hand, you gotta use a oil filter wrench. So hopefully it's not on there too tight. I'm gonna try to use my hand and untighten it. Okay. Alright, she's coming. Alright. It's starting to come. Alright, now with the old oil filter off, we've got the new one right here. What I like to do is fill it up before I reinstall it. On here, there's a little O-ring that goes around the outside of this upper lip. I'm just going to take the new motor oil, pour it in here, and kind of pre-fill it. And then just lubricate this O-ring with the new oil. This is gonna help give it a good seal. So some people, they say pre-fill this oil filter. Some people say don't do it. I like doing it because there's no oil in the engine right now. If you pre-fill it, there's gonna be oil pressurized in the engine already, because this is already filled. So you don't have to wait for the oil pump to initially start when you crank the motor, because when you're cranking the engine, there's no oil in the engine. There's no lubrication in there, so it's just metal. But by filling it, this is just my belief. You fill it so the oil reaches the metal moving parts sooner rather than later. So that's why I pre-fill it before I install it. This is my belief, but totally up to you guys. We got the filter pre-filled with some new oil. We're just gonna slowly snake it back in and put it on there. Alright, so when you're putting this filter back on, you want to make sure it goes on there nice and easy. If it feels really hard initially, it's probably not lined up properly and it's probably cross-threaded. That's the last thing you want to do is cross-thread it. So once she's on there snug, you might have to wipe off any oil that's on the outside of the filter and get a rag or something. Just start tightening it down, hand tight. It should be good. So hand tight. It's good. You don't want to wrench it on there. If you wrench it on there too much, what might happen is that rubber gasket or the seal might end up pinching it because you tighten it too much. And when that happens, it's going to not seal properly. That's why you want to hand tighten it. Okay. That's good. Hand tight is good. Just kind of wipe everything down. So I like to wipe it down so when I go back and check for leaks. If it's wet, I know something's leaking. If it's not wet, I know everything's on there properly. We'll go ahead and put this cover back on. This skid plate, I don't even know if you want to call it a skid plate or not. It's plastic. So you don't want to use an impact wrench on here. Or when you're putting these bolts back on, you don't want to go too crazy. Could ruin the retainer clips because this thing's plastic. So just take it nice and easy. Good enough. Time to fill her up with the oil. Alright, it's time to fill it up with the oil. We have the oil cap right here. Let's pop it open. This funnel, what I like to do is just wipe it out, make sure it's clean. Okay. So earlier, we've already put a little of this oil inside the filter. So this car is roughly around 5.4 quarts. What I'm going to do is just pour this whole gallon, well, pour this whole jug in here. That way I know I'm at 5 quarts already. Alright, 5 quarts of oil in there. What I'm gonna do is check the oil, make sure the oil's good. Start it up, let it idle for about 5-10 minutes, let the engine warm up, get the oil lubricated throughout the engine, shut it off, and check the oil again, make sure it's good. Here, most cars, the oil dipstick is yellow on the end. Just gotta look around the engine bay, but it's normally yellow. Check the oil real quick. Alright. So there's a low and a high, 2 little dots. Just want to make sure it's between the 2 dots. Right here it looks like it's right on the top one, so it should be good enough to start up. Then we'll check it again. So another thing you want to do when you start up the car, just want to make sure the low oil pressure light is not on. If it's on, something's probably leaking, or you forgot to put on the drain bolt. Something's not right, so just go ahead and turn the car off if the low oil pressure light is on. Basically, it's just letting you know that you don't have enough oil in your engine. Alright, now since the motor's had time to idle and cycle all that oil throughout the engine, I'm going to check this oil again. Make sure she's at the proper level. Alright, so looks like it's right in the middle. What I'm gonna do is just pour just a little bit more in there. Maybe 1/4 of a quart. That should do it. That should be good. Pump this up again. That should do it. That should do it. Well, there it is. 2010 Nissan Frontier Oil Change. Quality product, quality work. Something that you guys can do within your own garage. Hopefully this helps. If you guys got any questions, leave it in the comments below. And remember, like and subscribe.